Hello everybody. So today's video is a Patreon request, a Patreon deep dive on Aquestive, and the title of the video is Early Potential, because that is my conclusion for this stock, which is early potential there is. So I'm going to do a full company overview so that we understand what we're talking about here. So Aquestive is Aquestive Therapeutics is the name of a company, is a company that has a main platform and a new platform. The main platform that they have is called PharmFilm. PharmFilm is an oral thin film product that you typically put in the mouth and that dissolves a medication in the mouth. And so they have a lot of proprietary knowledge on how to do these buccal films or pharm films or sublingual films, depending how you call them. And they've successfully partnered with distributors, and they've had successful drugs around these films to distribute a drug. And one of their more successful drug that they have is called Suboxone. So Suboxone is a film. It's a film that you put under your tongue or against the buccal area of your mouth. Under your tongue is where you put it. It's a sublingual film. It's a film that you place in your mouth, and this film, Suboxone, is used to treat narcotics addiction. So Suboxone is the most popular, but they have other things like Sympazan, Epinephrine, Ondif, and the one that we're going to talk about that is brand new, that is the first wave of growth of this company, is Libervant. But the first thing to understand is that they have a platform for delivery of drugs, which are these thin films that are placed in the mouth and that melt a medication in your mouth, and that has several advantages, as we will see. That's the biggest chunk of the business. The biggest part, the bigger platform of the business is PharmFilm. They also have a new platform, which is still very tentative, still very early, but that's a gel platform, and I'll talk to it in probably about 10 minutes when I get to their solution about alopecia areata and how they're developing a gel for that may replace JAK inhibitors. So we're talking about a company that is very much at the edge of innovation in the medical field, and that is differentiated because they don't focus on pills. They don't focus on injections like many of the GLP-1 companies I've covered. They focus on a buccal film, So let's get started with now the first drug that they got approved, which is part of Platform 1. So, and that's, by the way, I'm just talking about new drugs. I'm not talking about the old stuff that they already got done, like Suboxone or Sympazan. That's in the past. These are smaller cell type businesses, but these are in the past. I'm talking about what's coming up. This is a future-oriented channel, so I'm talking about the future. So let's talk about Libervant buccal film, which is their Platform 1, which they estimate is going to lead to $100 million in total revenue. $100 million in total revenue, maybe between 2 or 3 years. So let's talk about Libervant. Libervant is a drug that just got approval by December 19, 2024 is when it got approval. This drug was approved for the treatment of seizure clusters in children aged 2 to 5. That's very specific. And they have market exclusivity until 2031. In other words, they are the only one who can treat epilepsy seizure clusters. We're talking about epilepsy here, the disease of epilepsies. They're the only one who can treat that in children 2 to 5, and this is a government-granted monopoly by the FDA. So it's really great for profits, but I want to point that out right now because we're going to talk about EpiPens in a second. Let's be sure to not avoid a PR crisis and not end up charging $5,000 if it's a drug. It's the only drug that is approved by the government. This is a government-granted monopoly, and so moat lovers are going to love this because, of course, if you love moats, if you want nobody to compete with you, well, there you go. They're the only game in town for treatment of seizure clusters in children aged 2 to 5. Very narrow condition. That's why it's called an orphan drug, and that's why they have the orphan drug exclusivity. But because of that, they've hired a sales team, they have a sales force active, and they are now beginning to promote the drug to 2,300 healthcare providers. They have full national distribution for the drug. Prescriptions average is 1.8 cartons per prescription, and the launch is on target and is doing well. And they're working on market access. Like I said, they have full distribution, so it's going to be over there. And they're working on negotiating for payer coverage. And so you can see they work with pharmacy benefit managers, they work with commercial plans, commercial insurance, and they work with Medicaid. So this is Medicaid reimbursable in all states with clinically appropriate edits. And by clinically appropriate, that means age 2 to 5. They're the only game in town age 2 to 5. So moat lovers love this because they're going to sell the stuff, and it's the only treatment available, and the FDA granted them a monopoly until 2031. So moat lovers love it, and people who do modeling, of course, love this. The question remains of how much they're going to charge and what's the gross margin going to be on this. But usually on this type of product, gross margin is between 80 and 90%. So I have no doubt that this will be a big money maker for this company, and this one is FDA approved, so it's not speculative. The money is coming in the next 2 to 3 years, and that will be important when I talk about the valuation later on. Moving on to the other product, same platform. So this is the Pharm Film platform, the buccal film that melts in your mouth, sublingual film. This one is a much bigger addressable market, namely it's 10 times bigger. Potential revenue is 10 billion. And Anaphylm is trying to disrupt EpiPens. And if you've been living in the US for a long time, let's say more than 10 years, if you remember the Obama years in the US, you may remember EpiPens being a campaign issue for Obama. I think it was in 2012 or something like that, but I still think in the American mind, EpiPens are still very famous, and they're trying to disrupt that. They're trying to disrupt EpiPens. So let's talk about this whole business and what it does and what EpiPens do and why a buccal film may work better than an EpiPen. So first of all, what disease are we talking about? We're talking about a disease called anaphylaxis. So anaphylaxis is a serious allergic reaction, allergies, right? A serious allergic reaction that is rapid in onset and potentially life-threatening. So that's, if you fly a lot, that's part of the reason why the treats they give you in planes don't really have much taste, because they want to make sure that nobody gets anaphylaxis. So they are very, very big on making sure that nobody gets allergies. That's why restaurants ask you all the time, do you have any allergies? That's why in the workplace sometimes the food is not very good, because they want to make sure that nobody attending is getting an allergy. That's partially because anaphylaxis, it's life-threatening. And so if you have a crisis, an anaphylactic crisis, I don't know if it's called like that, but I'm going to call it like that, oftentimes the one thing that can save your life is having access really quickly to epinephrine. Epinephrine is something that can save you. Why? Because epinephrine increases your heart rate and blood pressure, relaxes your muscles, tends to unblock the airways. It increases blood flow through the veins, especially the narrower of blood vessels. It reverses swelling, and it suppresses generally the body's reaction to the allergy. And so, and on top of that, it's considered safe to use for most people. So epinephrine is the first line of defense against anaphylaxis crises. And this is why there was this scandal with Mylan and the EpiPen. And you may remember Mylan acquired the EpiPen, and so they raised the price of the EpiPen to $600. That was back in the day. That led to many, many class action lawsuits. Billions of dollars had to be paid in the class action lawsuits because, the children couldn't afford the EpiPens, because all of a sudden the EpiPens, instead of costing $100, ended up costing $600 for a life-saving device. And so So they are not as expensive as they used to be anymore, but this still doesn't mean that EpiPens are the best. And there's multiple reasons why EpiPens are not the best. One of them is the form factor. The form factor of the EpiPen, it's rather big, it's bulky, it may fit in a purse, but if you just go around about your day and you just carry a wallet, it's not gonna fit. And not a lot of places have EpiPens, and so oftentimes, for example, the food allergy, you're going to get anaphylaxis when you are a child. It's much more common in children. Food allergies are more common in children than in adults. And so how can you reasonably expect a child to have on them either an EpiPen or an OVQ on them at all time? Well, you gotta expect that the school has it, but even the school doesn't always have it. And this food allergy is an epidemic. There's 33 million Americans that could potentially have anaphylaxis, and so that's an enormous total addressable market for EpiPens, for people who just need to have those on them at all times. And of course, because of the limitations of these EpiPens, what do you find? You find that most people just don't carry them around. They don't carry them around because these epinephrine medical devices, or EMDs as they're called, they're costly, it's inconvenient to carry them, they forget to bring it with them, it's not available always all the time at other places, or you think it's going to be available at another places and they don't have it. It expires, there's an expiration date, or the prescription has expired, so you can't get it. People get complacent, they don't get the pen with them, or sometimes patients don't understand that they need to carry the pen with them at all times. And you can understand if a medical practitioner prescribes you the pen, they only have 5 minutes to spend with you, maybe they don't tell you need to carry the pen at all time. And this is where the solution of this form film buccal film filled with epinephrine, an epinephrine buccal film, could be a solution. That's what Aquestive is betting on. They want to have an epinephrine solution, an epinephrine buccal film. And you would carry this just like you would carry a wet wipe. It would be or a Band-Aid or whatever. It would be very easy to fit in a wallet, or the way that that they presented in their investor presentation is it's smaller than a credit card. You could simply put it in the back of your phone, or on your phone cover, or near your phone battery. You just put it on your phone, and so you could make it so that most people who actually need to have an EpiPen with them, well, they wouldn't have an EpiPen, but they could have an Anaphylm with them at all times. And instead of getting the injection, they would just put the form film with epinephrine in it in their mouth, and then they would avoid anaphylactic crisis, and they would potentially avoid the worst case scenario, which is death. So they are very happy about this. In their testing, they've had good feedback from the FDA. In their testing, Cmax bracketing is the main measure of efficacy here, and you can see they end up more efficacious in their testing than EpiPen. So again, dissolving a buccal film of epinephrine is more efficacious than an EpiPen. It's not as efficacious as OVQ, which is the competitor of EpiPen, from what I understand. And all of these are more efficacious than adrenaline, not adrenaline, which is the least efficacious solution, which appears to be less favored by the market. So they would have a very, very good competitive positioning, and the form factor would essentially win the marketplace. And if they were to be approved, well, essentially not guaranteed, right? There's competition, right? There's going to be competition. But if they were to be approved, they would be the only oral epinephrine product to be approved. And that patent protection for that product could essentially, could potentially be until 2044. So, the question then, okay, until 2044, so you start to wonder how many people are going to have food allergies in 2035, 10 years from now. Are we going to have twice as many children and adults with food allergies? Are food allergies on the rise? I believe they are. Again, it's not a market I'm following too closely, but I believe food allergies are on the rise. So if food allergies are on the rise, that means anaphylaxis crises will be more common. That means a bigger market. And so they talk about that potentially the anaphylaxis market could be a $2 billion revenue market by 2031. So potentially $2 billion in sales. And they hope to be approved for this fairly soon. And they spend a lot of time in their calls and in their presentations talking about how their approval may come sometimes in late 25, early 26, potentially giving them exclusivity on until 2044. And so could this be a blockbuster drug, a blockbuster product? That's obviously something that you have to believe in for the thesis in this company to hold. Or at least I believe a lot of the valuation of this company is based in this thesis. And so very interesting product, if you ask me, very innovative. The third FDA pipeline that they have, the third FDA solution that they have is this AQST epinephrine topical gel, an epinephrine topical gel for alopecia areata. And so right here, they're once again trying to be a disruptor. So you can see in my option number 2. So essentially, let's go back to this. Libervant buccal film, the repeated seizures for children with epilepsy age 2 to 5. That's the cash cow. That's what we're going to make money on. That's the cash cow. The Anaphylm is big business number 1. This could be their big win number 1. And Anaphylm competes potentially against EpiPen if it gets approved. And then you have big business number 2 here, which would be the epinephrine topical gel, which would compete against a whole class of drugs called JAK inhibitors, which have been used historically so far for alopecia areata, and they have come up with a topical gel based on epinephrine, which could potentially disrupt this JAK inhibitor. So we are again entering a very specific market here, very specific field of medicine. So we're doing a 180 here and talking about something entirely different from epilepsy, entirely different from food allergies. We're now talking about alopecia areata. I put a picture of what this is. So this is a form of hair loss, but of course more acute than your typical hair loss. And so what this does is that your skin essentially stops working and you end up losing your hair. From what I understand, it is also painful. There's things like that going on. And so, of course, right now, the main product to treat this is called Olumiant. It's a JAK inhibitor that is being prescribed. It's a $1 billion market, and their product that they say uses epinephrine, and they think epinephrine could have a shot at dealing with human skin problems, and they explain to you why. And of course, I am not a physician, but based on their study, it seems like this adrenoverse technology that they have unlocks the potential of epinephrine for addressing problems limited to the absorption capabilities related to a skin treatment. Anyways, this is above my pay grade to understand it. But let me read this to you, because I had a conversation with an AI to try to kind of understand how it works. And here's what the AI tells me of how it works. Epinephrine activates adrenergic receptors, which are present in the skin and blood vessels. By applying epinephrine topically, you might constrict the local blood vessels, potentially reducing inflammation. That's the painful thing in the affected area. And so that's why an epinephrine gel may work better than a JAK inhibitor. I am not a dermatologist, so I can't tell you, but the FDA apparently appears to be responding to this, and that could be a big market for them. There's what they call reasons to believe. Well, that's an interesting way to put it. But again, there's a strong patient need to treat alopecia areata, and there's many opportunities for them anyways on this one. So again, this is very, very specific. Let me just tell you about so the opportunity size for this would be 500 million is what the opportunity size would be. So anyways, this is way out in the distance, so I'm not going to discuss it any further because frankly, I don't understand it too much, but could be something. So anyways, way out in the distance, if all of these three things work, you could potentially have a company that has $1.6 billion in sales by 2030. $1.6 billion in sales by 2030. Now, the topical gel, that's the most hypothetical. The Anaphylm sublingual, I believe this is what the company's energy is being 100% focused on. And if you look at their reports and their PDFs and the calls, they talk about the opportunity to disrupt the EpiPens. That's the biggest opportunity for them. This topical gel for alopecia areata, that's the long-range opportunity for them. And Libervant buccal film, that's the opportunity right now for them. So this is now where we're going to get into the financial analysis. Do the numbers make sense? So let's get into the numbers. So this company, current revenue of this company is, Q3 was 13.5 billion. So if you look at the full year 2024 outlook, the outlook is 60 million. So their current revenue appears to be 60 million, and their adjusted EBITDA loss, because they're still a money-losing company, is 20 million. And I'm using the most positive number here. I'm using the most positive number. So it's a company with a revenue run rate of 60 million and an adjusted EBITDA loss of 20 million. Now, the market cap of this company, the market cap is 228 million. That's the enterprise value. The market cap is 269 million. So what is the enterprise value over sales trading at? Well, it is trading at a 3.8x. And of course, so like I said, this is a company that is still losing money. But one of the key questions, of course, is to figure out, they're losing 20 million adjusted EBITDA every year. So it's to figure out, how much cash do they have? What are the cash equivalents? So they have 77.9 million of cash equivalents on the balance sheet. So how many years can they afford to lose $20 million? Well, they can afford to lose $20 million for about 4 years. So they have another 4 years of cash burn going. So right now, the negative adjusted EBITDA is not concerning. And of course, the revenues should grow because they are now the only game in town for the kids' buccal film, which so like I said, by then the kids' buccal film, which is for epilepsy, I had it wrong. It's different from Anaphylm. The kids' buccal film from epilepsy by then should have reached its 100 million because that's their 4-year target until 2029. So they should have 100 million in sales on top of that, which means that cash burn, they should get out of that cash burn probably within 1 or 2 years. And the analysts, when you look at the analyst number, the analysts are telling me that in December 2025, they only see this company do 53 million in revenue. So I do not think the analysts are giving them credit just yet for the future sales related to Libervant, the kids' epilepsy solution. I don't think the analysts are giving them any credit. This is why the stock is still looking like a price to sell. Around a 4 really is the price to sales. Gross margin is still 70%. This company is all about the future growth. And so let me tell you my general conclusions about this company. So this company is not a pre-revenue company. It's already making a revenue. It's still losing money. It's a money-losing company, but it's not a pre-revenue company. They have proven sales. They just happen to be investing a lot in R&D to develop their future growth. This is a company that is awaiting its next stage of growth and that is burning a little bit of cash at 20 million negative adjusted EBITDA per year. They're burning a little bit of cash. They have about 4 years of cash left. So they can burn 20 million for about another 4 years before bankruptcy happens. Now, why do I think that's okay with them burning the cash for now? Because it seems like they should have a successful rollout of their new FDA-approved Libervant to treat epilepsy in kids 2 to 5. this is being rolled out. This is available at more than 2,000 healthcare providers. The product is being promoted. The product should sell, being that it's the only one that is FDA approved, being that they are negotiating with insurance companies, with payers for reimbursement, and being that Medicaid pays for the product in all states. And so that should lead to some revenue growth. By some, I mean it should lead to high revenue growth. Namely, we should move from about 60 million in revenue to about 160 million. And the question is, how long will that take to ramp to 100 million extra of revenue? Well, I would say it's going to take 2 to 3 years. So the revenue growth is 167%. That's what we expect over a 2 to a 3 year period. So if successful, that would translate into a business growing between 82 and 55% revenue growth per year. So we can expect very high revenue growth in the coming years. In the 2 or 3 coming years, we can expect very, very high revenue growth, well above my minimum 30% threshold. That's what we can expect, provided that they are successful at rolling out their Libervant, which they should be. And that gives some margin of safety for the big bet. The big bet being Anaphylm sublingual film. That's the big story. That's the big bet. The big bet is the disruption of EpiPens for folks with food allergies, for people with food allergies. People with food allergies have issues carrying those pens. Those pens are expensive, and if Anaphylm became a thing, it could potentially disrupt those EpiPens. And that could be potentially 50% in sales if they were to take half of the market. So assuming the pens would be one half and assuming Anaphylm would be the other half, and depending on how quickly they can get there, that could potentially be $1 billion in sales. That may be a little aggressive. I do not know how receptive the market is going to be. My guess is that a lot of this is going to depend on pricing. But the little bit of experience that I begin to have investing in these health stocks is that if they price it right, if they price it cheaper than the EpiPen, they could potentially be able to sell a lot. And of course, this being a sublingual film, they probably have the structure to be able to charge it at a much cheaper price. Because as you can see, these pen devices, these epinephrine delivery devices, medical devices, they tend to be bulkier, they tend to be more complicated to manufacture than the sublingual film. So if they price it right, they could ramp up the sales very, very well. And for the alopecia areata topical gel, as you saw in my analysis, I didn't quite do a deep dive into it too much, because to me, this is too far out in the distance. I do not know how much of a difference there is between a gel and a JAK inhibitor. It would have to be with the efficacy. The efficacy of their solution would have been better than not. But this is a 2028 story. This is still very highly speculative at this point, so I would not include it in this story. So to conclude my analysis on this complicated stock, this stock gave me a challenge to analyze. This is a complicated one, so thank you to the Patreon member who gives me a challenge here. So I think this stock has somewhat of a margin of safety due to Libervant. So it's got somewhat of a margin of safety due to that, because they are guaranteed to sell it because of the FDA granting them a monopoly. And if we have just a mildly successful ramp, we should go away from that negative adjusted EBITDA and move into positive adjusted EBITDA territory, and the company should not be at risk anymore. But I think much of the value of investing in this company is in the potential FDA approval for Anaphylm. To me, this stock can mostly be seen as a call option on the FDA approval for Anaphylm, and this is probably one of these stocks that you'll see on Finviz at one point in the headlines, and you won't understand, and it'll be number one, and the stock is up 80% today because Anaphylm got approved, and so the market is discovering the opportunity after the approval. So this is a pre-approval play, almost like a classic biotech stock, but I definitely see a big opportunity in Anaphylm. So anyways, this was a tough one to analyze, and so you understand why this is not financial advice. This is not investment advice, not financial advice. This is just entertainment. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking, for subscribing, and for your support on Patreon. Obviously, if you watch this video, this is a Patreon exclusive, so you are on Patreon, and so I thank you for being on Patreon. And thank you to the Patreon supporter who requested this stock analysis. I am more than thankful for your support, and I was very happy to spend multiple hours studying that stock for you. I hope this video was helpful. This was not investment advice. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.